Hey, it's Andre. It's time for another Friday Flying Update. This flew. No, I'm not doing anything but trucks, but darn. This thing's impressive. The Traxxas Slash, it is filthy, dirty, but boy is it fun. Now, more to the point, over the weekend, last weekend, I did get the big bomber, and I've got the previous one. That's a 60-inch wingspan. This is a 90, just to give you a difference. But the big one flew. Similar issues, a little tail heavy, so I'm going to move the batteries forward. I kept room in there to actually drop the battery bay a little bit forward. And then revisions are going to keep happening. I have some servos to throw in to give myself some rudder control, because this airplane was nice. It handled really well. I flew it on the 10-inch props, and it handled really well. Had plenty of power. I've gone the 11 because those are the most efficient. The slow fly 11.45s are the most efficient with the DT750 motors. But it flew really cleanly, but with once I get the rudders in, I can do coordinated turns. And the idea is I can keep it nice and level through the turns. Flat turns really work well for something like this. It's not going to be much of a bomber, and actually I'm going to clear everything off the bench here in a second and give it kind of a peek into the airplane and how it's designed. This for the four, it looks like a Lancaster. It's not a Lancaster. It's actually some other designs. And the principle behind it was being able to launch other aircrafts from the top, things like the FT Goblin and so forth. So, or Sky Hunters, little mini Sky Hunters. So I will build a cradle on the top right over the CG once I find the CG, and have some fun with it. I think I might do a little faux canopy at the top, a little bit of a, use some poster board and everything, do a little turtle deck work, and just make it look that much more polished. I think version 2, I'm just going to make it a Lancaster. The rudders have been cut down, and they were really, really tall. We cut them down a little further. They flew really fine, but it was really annoying to get it into the car. This actually does fit in my car. The wing goes from end to end, being 90 inches. So like I said, revision 2, the wing will become a 3-piece. And I think the center section will be 40, and then the 2 ending sections will be the recording sizes. So I'm going to put this guy somewhere and keep talking about this airplane in a little bit more detail. Again, DT750 motors, which turned out to work really well. They were on an old quad that I had. The ESC is a 25 amp, and it is a quad receiver, or a quad box, cube brain, or whatever it is. Something old that I just had there, and it worked. Look how filthy that truck is. And I used some landing gear that I had done years ago. All up weight with 2 3S 4000s in there. Those are 30Cs, old B grade, but they did the job. They run together. I would think it was up the flight. The initial flight was 3.5 minutes, and I had plenty of battery time left. So those DT750s are really efficient. I know they're older tech and everything, and I know everybody is complaining that they overlap. Version 2, I'll get the outer motors out. I am considering putting in some 3-bladed props if I do a Hobby King order, some 10x5s, I think. And I think it will look better. There's nothing wrong with these slow flies, and I have them. The idea behind this aircraft was basically the only new cost were, 6 sheets of foam. Incidentally, last night I weighed the difference between Elmer's and the Adams foam, and we're talking, 10 grams per sheet. Obviously the Elmer's is a little heavier, and you can't peel it over the Adams. This thing was built out of Adams, and it weighed up with batteries, I said 2,600 grams. So, it's not a light aircraft. At the same time, it's not crazy bad. So after the first flight, I went and I shaved the back end a bit. I took off all the foam board, and I actually just put a piece of poster board in, just trying to lighten up the CG through the back end of it. And like I said, I've got 2 servos, and I'll set up the rudders afterwards. It does have a steerable tail wheel, and I have put a bigger wheel on since the last flight. head controllable with the rudders. I can do differential on the props, but I kind of don't want to get this into a weird situation where the power is uneven, because it is a larger size aircraft. Just using 9-gram servos, it does have flaps, and it is fairly easy to take apart. Where is that piece of foam? I actually had a piece of foam that I built, and this thing, and I've discovered it is great for sticking under the airplane for when I want to remove the wing, because it just kind of supports it. Using a bunch of rubber bands all together, and most of the time I'll do a cross pattern, so just 2 pieces of rubber bands tied together, and the whole thing is designed to be boxed. The connections for the back end of the aircraft, so there's 2 servos that run the elevator, and the 1 tail wheel, and eventually 2 servos for the rudders will all connect, and everything is kind of set to the receiver, so I hook in from there, and that just seems to help it all out. Let's see, can I do this with the light in a way without dropping the wheels off the deck and making a big mess? But let's see, come on. So it's a box. There we go. And there's the fuse. The fuse comes off, and like I said, to access the battery bay, quick hatch, and off we go. The fuse itself is very light. Again, poster board to the back end of it. So a couple frame base, support pieces inside just to help the stability. Some wooden dowels, and they're all boxed in. And it's fairly simple and clean. I'm going to reroute how I do the wires, because the wiring comes in from underneath, so I'm going to actually tag them, probably go through this piece of foam, and it's 2-3 sheets basically to build the entire fuselage, and then you just stick that to one side and you leave it alone. A couple of skewers. I cut the elevator wrong, so I did put in a spar. There's a big piece of fiberglass, not fiberglass, carbon fiber, just to help stiffen it up and give it a little bit more rigidity. And that seemed to work. And the elevator actually is surprising well. Did put in 2 sets of skewers just to lock and tighten everything up. I wouldn't have cut it here next time. And in theory, if I wanted to, I could go longer and or offset it and just have 1 servo in the middle. That's what Josh tends to do from flight tests with his bigger aircraft. Just uses a bigger metal servo in the center. But the split worked. You just have to make sure everything's lined up, obviously, so you don't induce a turn. And here's the main part. It's, like I said, it's ET750s. The main brain for the ESC is under here, so it is ventilated if I run into any issues during the warmer season. And that is, yeah, that's a little 4x25 amp Q brain. That was what I was using in the APM quad. 2 connectors comes off. The receiver sits in the back, and like I said, if I swing this around without whacking the camera, it sits back there, and then I just have the 2 servo leads for the there you go, for the rudder and the elevator, and obviously there will be another one once I hook in the actual 2 rudder servos. So, and then some landing gear. The landing gear did come off on the maiden flight, so hopefully this is a little bit more secure. Again, it's kind of slapped together. Initially, the plane was just going to be a float plane and fly off the snow, and then as I decided whether it was up or lower, I added the landing gear, and it kind of took on more of a Lancaster look, I guess. Wing isn't obviously a Lancaster style because it's curved back, and that was based off something I had seen. The next one, obviously, like I said, the motors will step out, and the center section, rather than being 30 inches, will be 40, and then the other one. So right now I have to figure out for the next build what I want to use to interlink the spars and lock it. I suspect it'll be some kind of bolt system that goes in, and then a layer of tape. So I'll tape up the spot, and then you'll put another adhesive, a layer of tape just to keep it all linked in. And then it's, unless there's LED lights in the wing, it'll just be the aileron connections hooking through, and the motors and everything will remain in the center. And they'll just make it easier for transport. This fits in the car, but it's not very travel friendly or storage friendly. Like, this thing is taller than I am at 90 inches. It touches the ceiling here in the basement, so. But it's fun, and it worked, and it was fun. I have 4K footage that my buddy Steve, I'll throw his drone captain, Captain Drone. He's got some nice 4K footage of this thing flying for the first time, which I will link in and share once I get my hands on it. Otherwise, you've seen the footage, and I'll just overlay a little bit from the initial flight. Next flight out, I will put cameras on it. It was a guy's weekend. I didn't have any of my cameras with me. We took some snap photos, and everything was just on our cell phones. But next flight out, I will shoot the wing and see how it looks. I've got, it's stiff. I mean, I can hold it from one side, and it's doing minimal damage through all the handling and everything. It's not a huge, there's not a huge amount of change in the wing, but obviously it flew. And in there, I've just got these fiberglass poles, and that's you know, more or less what is holding the whole thing together. But you know, so it's not exactly the stiffest thing, but it is still structurally sound and will do the job, and obviously flew. So next up is to fix the CG issues, do the rudder, and fly it. Again, it flies on two 3S4000s, 30Cs. I do have my Zippy Compacts, which are 40C, which would give me a little bit more kick. And it's just finding the CG and enjoying it, seeing if the gear works and everything. So it's one of those simple builds and the premises was use what I had except for the new foam. Next plane I build will probably be as big because I'm really enjoying large planes. And obviously we'll have to paint it up and everything, or I may leave it more of a white scheme and throw a bunch of LEDs into it. Whatever new wing I built, I will give myself a better channel in the middle, kind of a little bit like what I did with the other bomber, and that way I can then route stuff through. This one I was, you know, sloppy and fast, and everything's routed on the bottom just because there was no channel in the center because I made the spar super narrow, I noticed. So again, having fun, sketching notes, and not really following any set plans, just kind of figuring out where the calculation is for the wing and where that CG locates. So I think I would like to have shifted this wing a little bit more forward on the fuse, just a bit, not a huge amount, and that just helps get the CG more forward. But otherwise it flew and it felt kind of stable. And once I put the rates up a little higher too, middle rates seemed really nice. Again, probably like 85% on the throws and with a 30% expo, and it felt really good after I'd settled out in the nose issue. So flew a little tail heavy, as I said. So other than that, flight test wise, this plane was awesome. This is the Simple Scout. I do have to swap out that motor. This thing has probably got a bad magnet in it. It was making a lot of noise and it got fairly hot flying around. So it's probably due to be, I suspect I crashed it at some point. I've got a bunch of these 30,000 kV Turnigy motors that do the job. But otherwise, it was a fun little airplane. 3S1300, 3 servos, and off you go. So very simple build. Sorry, 4 servos because it's all 4 controls. So I was doing a lot of aerobatics with it, and you know, the thing was up for a good 5, 6, 7 minutes, I think. So, so there you go. It is Friday. It is a Good Friday, long weekend. If the rain cooperates or goes away, hopefully we'll get some flying in on Sunday and Monday. And if I do, I'll take this guy out again to definitely fly it, enjoy it, and some other flight test planes. Because once this thing is in the car, there's not a whole lot of room left. So. Thank you for all the new subscriptions, subscribers this week. It's well appreciated. And have a fantastic long weekend if you have it. Thanks. Bye.
See what I mean? He's in the air before the hump. Cool. That's awesome. I feel like we're doing a final walk. Yeah. Give it final rights or something here. Yeah, they are actually. Not intentionally. Sounds good. Love it when a plan comes together. I love it when a plan comes together. A-team.
So do you want to take off from over here or do you want to go out there? I haven't been bad. I just throttle it in and drop into the ground.
So what do you call this thing?
Big.
Big. What kind of motors has it got?
DT 750s. 10
Yeah,
inch props.
4 of them.
That's good. Yeah.
Running on what? 3S?
As far as our 4000. 2.